Hello, I'm Arizona Republic's education reporter Lily Altavina. I'm joined by Kathy Hoffman, Arizona's Superintendent-elect. The Associated Press called the race on Tuesday for you, Kathy. So it's probably been an exciting few days. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What do you think it was about your campaign that resonated with people?
There were several different things that I think resonated. One, that I kept my campaign very focused on what our students need, what our teachers need, made it very real life experience related that parents and different communities that I was talking to could understand and understand where I was coming from. And I think people could see my passion and dedication. And of course, I have to give so much credit to my amazing campaign team, as well as all the volunteers across the state, all the teachers who were speaking out and supporting my campaign along the way. So there were many factors to it, but we had a very grassroots campaign, and I don't think I followed any playbook of how to win a campaign. I created my own path forward, and it was great. It was just a great team and a great campaign, and of course I'm very happy with the outcome.
And so you're a millennial. You might be one of the first actually to hold statewide office. What of that perspective do you think you'll bring to the Department of Education?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think one thing that will set me apart from other typical elected officials is, I think, since I am a younger, now elected person, I'm still getting used to saying that, but since I am on the younger side, one thing that's very important to me is having a strong communications department. And so I know what is more traditional is having good PR, of course, but to me it's also very important to have great social media and to for example, do Facebook Live videos, to have a Twitter account that is, of course, professional, but also highlighting all of our achievements, and just to have that open line of communication out to the public is very important to me. And I think too that I do bring just a different energy. That since I am a first-time candidate and first time being elected to anything, that also brings a different type of energy. That of course I'm going to surround myself with experts, but I also will be thinking creatively to solve solutions in ways that people might not have thought of before.
And so you're about to lead a department, the Arizona Department of Education, that dispenses, about $6 billion annually.
Yeah.
What are you going to do in the next 2 months to prepare? What's your game plan?
Absolutely. So right now I'm working with my team to create a transition team that is going to be made up of educational leaders, educational policy leaders. That it's very important to me that these are people who are respected in the field, who come from diverse backgrounds. And so right now we're working on determining who will be on that team. And then as far as the financial side of things, of course I'm going to be hiring a chief of staff. And one thing we're going to be working on with this team is creating a separate committee that is even more specifically going to be looking at the education finance side of things. And so we'll have people who would be considered to be education finance experts sitting on that committee, and the purpose of that is to make sure that our Department of Education is properly allocating all of the funds. I don't want there to be any mistakes made, and I think we should start with a clean slate there.
Is that your first priority once you're sworn in, is the audit? It
is one of my top priorities because I know as an elected person that I should be held responsible to the taxpayers, and so that's why we're going to set up that committee even before I take office, to figure out who the best people will be to serve on that committee. And so that way when we get in, we can immediately start looking and go line by line, and just it's a matter of fiscal responsibility. It's not to be in any way disrespectful or punitive in any way to the staff there. I know that the staff in ADE has been doing an amazing job and doing their best, and I've met with many people in ADE that are just incredibly dedicated to our public schools. And so the intent of the audit is to make sure that my administration can be held responsible and accountable for all of the spending that's taking place in the Department of Education.
And so, another part of the job is working with the state legislature, working with Doug Ducey.
Yeah.
How will you do that? What's your plan there?
Well, my plan is to be as cooperative as possible. I definitely plan on meeting with them again ahead of January, being very proactive about setting up meetings with legislators, with the governor's office. And my my priority is to find those areas where we can collaborate and work cooperatively together. I'm sure we have many shared goals. For example, I know he has mentioned that he also has the intention of charter school reforms, of having more transparency and accountability there. So that's just one example where there's, at least from what I've heard, that there's bipartisan support from that, and so we will be working on that together.
See, on that subject of charter reform and accountability, what do you think needs to be done? What do you see on the outlook there?
Well, what I've learned along the way and what I've been hearing as I've met with different educational leaders, including charter school leaders, is that we do need to figure out a way to make the system more fair, because we do know that these schools are in competition with each other, and we want to make sure that all of our students have access to a high quality education and the learning opportunities that they need to be successful, whether that's just your regular books and paper and pens to be successful, or whether that's special education services and those types of tools and therapies that are also very expensive. So I'm going to be working with people from different backgrounds, from district schools as well as charter schools, to figure a way forward together, because we definitely need to figure out how to make the system more fair so that everyone benefits.
And so you were one of the teachers who descended on the Capitol this year for Red for Ed. Does that movement have a place in the Department of Education, and how so, if it does?
The way I see it is that I've been elected to be a voice for our teachers and our students. I'm a voice for public education. That is my role as superintendent, is to be a positive, pro-public education voice, to find solutions that benefit everyone. I know Red for Ed is part of that's what they care about. I know the Save Our Schools group has also been pushing for policies that support our public schools, and so I don't see it as there being one movement. I see it as there's a pro-public education movement to make sure that our schools are fully funded, that our teachers have competitive pay, that we need to address the inequities within our public school system. For example, when you got to rural Arizona, they are oftentimes faced with even more hardships and have a very challenging time hiring teachers. There's a lot of issues there as well we could get into, but so I see my role as being the advocate.
And how do you support students with disabilities or special needs? What do you think needs to be done there in the Arizona Department of Education?
I can speak there from personal experience, actually, as someone who's worked in special education for many years, and there's a lot of work to be done there. One of the biggest issues there is that our special education teachers and specialist providers, including speech therapists, occupational therapists, et cetera, that they do often burn out very quickly, that the workload is often very high, or their caseloads are considered to be very high. And so we do need to look at the data to really see what's going on in that area. I know it's also been hard for schools to hire and retain paraprofessionals who work with our students with the most needs, who often have medical needs, and but when it's very, it can be very bad and just traumatic for a child to go from paraprofessional to paraprofessional, or to have the rotating staff of that. But the issue there is that our paraprofessionals are only paid minimum wage, and it's a very demanding job. And so there's a lot of different areas to look at there, and unfortunately a lot of it does come back to funding and how do we pay for it, how do we give them raises, and so that will be one of the biggest questions we're facing in the years to come.
And so you speak 3 languages, right?
Yes.
For students who are learning English, what do you think those students need in Arizona's classrooms?
Well, I plan to keep fighting that we completely repeal the English-only law, because as the English-only law stands right now, Arizona has the lowest high school graduation rate of our English learning students in the country. It is at 18%, whereas the state average for all students is 80%. And so if we can set that as a goal to improve the graduation rate of our English language learning students, and part of that would be to repeal the English-only law to improve the instruction of our English language learning students, then that's going to be great for our state, for our economy, for our workforce, because we'll have that many more students graduating high school and being successful. And I know from personal experience that being bilingual is a professional asset, and so I see it as that we should be treating their language abilities as an asset and not a deficit.
And where will you come for Arizona's teacher shortage? That's been discussed a ton, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about it. What do you think you'll do in the department?
Well, again, being the voice for public education down at the legislature, I will continue to lobby for competitive pay for our teachers. I know we're on the right track with that with Governor Ducey's 20 by 2020 plan. I would also like to look at teacher benefits, including healthcare, because that's an area where teachers have had to pay more towards healthcare. I mean, as we've seen nationally, the cost of healthcare has gone up, and our schools have been, unfortunately due to the cost, have been providing less and less support in that area. And so another piece of that I've mentioned along the way is the need for paid maternity and paternity leave, because it's just such an economic hardship for our teachers who already have statistically very low pay, and then to have to take a couple months off work with no pay with a newborn child is just devastating for families. And so that's another issue that I will continue to fight for, because so many of our teachers are parents, and we have many young parents, and that's the type of benefit that can make our public schools more competitive with the private sector.
Well, Kathy, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be following education and all sorts of issues at azcentral.com.
Thank you so much.